This message is intended as a reminder that we are not licensed professionals, not psychiatrists or psychologists. If you have a serious problem, please seek professional help. The National Suicide Hotline is 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-8255.
Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. Hearing all these letters read aloud by damsels not in distress. Host came to impress. Bitch, check your DMs. This is hot off the press.
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good. We always start with like a visual thing, and I try not to do that because of the audio. But you inspired me to dress a little nicer today.
You look nice with your hair done.
Thank you. I did get my hair done with a mask on.
Was it scary?
I think it's just what is it called when you just like have this effect of like, okay, now I have coronavirus, like just because I was out, like, you know.
Yeah. Placebo effect?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
That'll do it.
Yeah. I don't know anything new with me. You know what? Let's just talk about the guy that ghosted me that I'm letting back in, because why not? You know what? Why don't you just give me some advice, Lauren, as you do best?
Yeah. Let's hear about the guy.
On what to do. Okay. I went on a few dates with him last year, yeah. And I really liked him. I felt like we had a good connection. On the second date, he took me to Jumbo's Clown Room. Have you ever been there?
No, and I never want to go there. That sounds horrible.
Okay, I will say it's actually fun to go. It would be fun to go with like a group of like girlfriends and just like, because it's not a strip club. They just have on like really cool outfits and like dance around. And it would be fun to go with like your girlfriend.
Clowns. You said clown room.
That's what it's called, Jumbo's Clown Room.
Oh, I thought there were going to just be clowns everywhere.
I know, it's misleading. It's not.
It's indoor?
It is indoor. It obviously is not. What'd you say?
How is this legal right now?
I'm going to assume it's not happening right now. This was last year that we did this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah. Well, he didn't just was like, let's go there. We like had drinks and then we went there. And it was awkward because I don't know him. Like, it would be fun if I was like dating someone for a while and we were like, oh, this is fun, and just like throwing ones or with girlfriends or whatever. So I guess that was odd, right? You don't really take someone there on a second date. But regardless, I still like liked him and thought we had a connection. Mm-hmm. So after that date, he never texted me, and I'm not really sure why. I don't know. Because you run over the things that happened in your head, and I'm like, did I talk, like, I said, like, I didn't like Trump. I don't know. I was like, did I talk politics too much? I don't know. And then, so then we matched on Coffee Meets Bagel recently, and I was like, oh, what did I say to him? I was like, I guess our time at Jumbo's Clown Room meant nothing to you. And he was like, no, how could I forget you? Like, it like referenced something from our date that I had kind of forgotten what the joke was. So then I was like, do I want to rekindle this or not? Like, whatever. So I kind of just let the chat expire. Not on purpose. I just kind of forgot about it. And then, because on Coffee Meets Bagel, they expire. And then he added me to Instagram. This is like what a modern 2020 romance this is.
Yeah.
He added me to Instagram. He replied to one of my pictures. And we started chatting again, and I just was kind of like, hey, do you want to get a drink sometime? I don't know why. You know what? No, I do know why. Because I was like, maybe I could just get a fuck buddy out of this. But then, like, every time I do that, I just never follow through.
Never.
Like, no, it's fine. Like, I'll use him for sex. And then it just feels weird.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're in the middle of talking.
Because you know what the deal is with that? It's that, like, you need to do it with one of those people that's, like, too nice to you. Because the problem is when you do it with people who, like, you're chasing, or, like, you would be okay if they turned around and were like, I'd like a relationship, then you're always going to want the relationship in the back of your head. But if you did it with somebody who you actually were not interested in a relationship with, then it would be successful.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of annoying because he's just like, okay, well, what's open? And I'm like, a simple Google search would tell you outdoor dining. Like, you can just tell he's not trying to put the effort in. So we'll see what happens with that. I think I should probably just let that one go.
I mean, he's ghosted you, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like he's putting in the effort. Seems like you're more interested than he is.
He's also like 37.
Like this is not going to end well. That's my take.
No, you're right. I was actually going over like all the things with my neighbor, and she's like, okay, well, let's say you do sleep with him. You're going to have to be okay with him maybe just ghosting you
Never
again.
talking to you ever again.
And there's like a certain level of shame associated with that, right? Like, especially being a woman.
Oh, it never feels good afterwards.
It never feels good. Yeah.
Good. But our guest today, I was watching some of his videos, and one of the things that he talks about that I really loved was you have to go through to get through, meaning that you have to have difficult experiences. Well, you know what? I'll just let him tell you. Let's go talk to our guest today.
All right. So we're super excited to welcome Coach Courtney Gatlin, a certified life and relationship coach. Thanks for joining us today.
No problem. It's awesome. Thank
Yeah,
you for having me.
of course. And you said you were having a busy day of coaching calls.
Yes.
Well,
And
thank you for making time for us.
yeah, and you
No
mentioned
problem.
your business took off in the pandemic with coaching. So I'm just curious why you think that like the pandemic, do you think that sparked more relationship issues, or what do you think about it made it really take off?
Absolutely. Yeah. There were a lot more traffic. My website was getting so many. It was getting just a ton more hits, like 300% more hits than it normally was. My YouTube channel. I don't know. I kind of caught my groove, but I'm like a nerd when it comes to analytics. I like study it. I study what people are doing and what gets their attention. And um, I had already had the background in that information, so I just kind of started to just tweak it a little bit, tweak the hashtags, tweak the content that I was providing, and sure enough, like it started to grow. One week I started to go up 10%, and the next week went up 50%, then 70%, and
Wow.
next thing you know, I was getting all of my traffic comes through YouTube. Well, I won't say all of it. To be specific, 89% of my traffic comes from YouTube. The rest is Instagram, TikTok. And it's just a lot of people going through breakups. And what people were realizing was they were locked down with people that they didn't know, or B, they didn't like. So they started to reach out to me and ask me on how to kind of right the ship a little bit and turn the relationships around. So COVID, like I honestly, I feel like if COVID didn't happen, I probably would have just been shooting shots in the dark or throwing darts at the board, trying to figure out the right recipe to get more people through the door. But it's been crazy helpful. It's a tragedy, but while I'm homeschooling, I get to also coach too. So
Yeah. And how did you first get involved in this?
shoot, how does everybody go into the personal development school? Something dramatic happened in my life. It was a divorce, um, and I said, you know what, I will do everything I can help people in my situation to help them understand uh, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and I can kind of help coach them and guide them to that light, and as well as like nudge them back on the right path when I see that they're clearly starting to stray off. And yeah, there's just that passion, like that pain. I turn that pain into passion. My During my whole little search for discovery and growth, I came across a book. I think it's Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning.
I love that book. My
Yeah,
background's in like humanistic psychology, so they talk about that book all the time.
yeah, sociology was me, but I was very intrigued by psychology, and I feel like the real educating happens once you graduate, because honestly, I forgot 80% of the stuff that I learned in school, but the education happened, and education, like what stuff that I do today happened after I graduated, like the continuing education credits, um, the lectures and things I went to that really just intrigued me.
Mm.
It was actually more like psychology slash trauma, uh, trauma informed care, a bunch of different, you know, psychology based courses and stuff. So that book, I came across that, and it just turned my life around. Actually, the book that did it for me, because all I did in quarantine was read, study, um, study people like Napoleon Hill, Earl Nightingale, James Allen. As a Man Thinketh was the book that turned me around. Viktor Frankl, like Bob Proctor, Dr. Wayne Dyer, Les Brown, just all over the place. Like I was a nerd where once I got into that funnel, it was just over because like, I knew that there was more to life than what I was living, and I had to be kind of like the sacrifice for the bigger purpose that God had for me.
I was gonna say the one quote I love in that book is like it's the analogy of comparing like a human suffering to like gas filling up a chamber, and like no matter like how much you pump, it's gonna fill it up evenly. And I feel like that's such a good analogy when you're going through a breakup, because you kind of go through this kind of misery phase where you're very like self-indulgent on your pain, and
Yeah,
you're like,
yeah,
but then you kind of beat yourself up and you're like, there's so many bigger things in the world happening to me. But
uh-huh.
I mean, is there a specific reason? Like, I mean, I know you're talking about your divorce, but like, I guess with like the breakups and divorces, are there like patterns that you're seeing, or just like, why was it so intriguing to you to kind of help others along this path?
Oh, the breakup aspect,
Mhm.
because I think that's the area where people experience the most pain, and that's the area where they're the most lost. And uh, I felt like it was kind of my purpose. Like I couldn't ignore it, um, because I remember what I was experiencing when it was 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I had nobody to talk to, and all I had was like YouTube and some of those people would be real soothing and therapeutic for me to listen to. And I saw so much contradictory advice that I felt kind of obligated to just kind of give them the real. So one of the guys I listened to, he says knowledge plus experience equals wisdom. So you can have the knowledge, but if you don't have the experience, you don't have true wisdom. Or you can have the experience, but if you don't have the educational background in it, you don't have the true wisdom. So I felt like many people miss that extra part. They may have the knowledge and they're basing things off of what they've seen or what they've read, but they don't have the experience. So that's kind of I felt obligated to um, to kind of touch on that and make that my main focus because I have all three. Like I've been married, I've been divorced, I've been through heartache, but I also been through healthy relationships, and I've also been able to. I was always a guy that people would come to me about relationship advice anyway, and they will always just find solace in talking to me. And I mentor. I ran another business. This is my second business. I ran a mentoring business for 15, 16 years, and it was kind of comparable to the Big Brothers Big Sisters program. So in my area, I started it, and that was like I worked with all at-risk youth, and I would just pick them up every day after school, and I guess that's kind of where I got the most of my listening skills from because you got to kind of be there and be present with them in order to get them to open up. And I just thought this was a natural progression into what I was supposed to be doing in life. So I just kind of gravitated towards it. I don't know.
Well, no, I think it's really interesting because in one of your YouTube videos, I love your quote. And I think it's actually from your mom when she said, you have to go through to get through. And
Yeah.
I'm a child of divorce, and my dating issues were heavily, I think, impacted because of my parents' divorce. And I really resonated with that quote because I feel like I am a more empathetic person because of like the trauma that I
Mhm.
went through. And it's a bit easier for me to give advice and to
Yeah.
understand what people are going through because of having gone through that. And I do notice sometimes with other people who maybe haven't been through like something as traumatic, when they do deal with situations later on in life that are very
Yeah.
traumatic, it's sometimes like more of a panic aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. They catch them off guard and they just don't
Yeah.
know what to do. But it's like, well, that's what happens when you don't have the experience. Because if you actually had it, then you'll be able to operate at a much more calmer and much more uh, with a better view, a clearer view. You know, like you won't be surprised. Like you just kind of expect it, and then when it happens, you know how to maneuver. Like you'll be prepared for it.
Right.
Uh, so I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Hope that wasn't too off base.
I'm curious about your daughter and like how she was impacted by you going through that.
Well, I have three, uh, 18, 12, and 6, and they all handled it very different. My 6-year-old is an anxious attacher, and she pretty much she's all under my legs doing coaching calls, and she's constantly under me. I think my 12-year-old turned more dismissive. She's very independent. She does things on her own. But the 18, she's 18 now, but she was 15 when we got divorced, or around 15, 16. And she handled it the roughest because I'm all she know. Us together was all she ever knew. So she was quite, she wasn't really happy about
Yeah.
it. And, I don't know where she's at today as far as like with the whole deal. I'm sure she's processing it on her own time, but um, she did tell me she wanted to get into like counseling too or something like that. So I don't know. She's kind of following in my footsteps a little bit, but yeah, it divorce affects everybody differently. Because there's no one size fit all, and it's clearly all three of my kids they feel totally different about their experience or their recollection on how things went down or how things transpired is all different. Like the 6-year-old's like, yeah, it is what it is. But I'm actually starting to see them, ask more questions now.
Hmm.
As far as my middle, and my youngest, ask more questions about things like what happened, like how things kind of unfolded. And I'm pretty transparent with them. Um, so I'm transparent, but I try to keep it at an age appropriate level, something that they can understand and digest. So they're definitely at the point now, it's been a couple years now where they're actually okay with talking about it because at the beginning, they didn't even want to talk about it. Right? They were just kind of getting used to like, all right, this is the new normal. Like my 12-year-old the other night, we watched Mrs. Doubtfire together.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you remember Mrs. Doubtfire, but in that movie, Robin Williams got divorced and he had 3 kids. And then he acted like he was a housemaid in order to see his kids more throughout the divorce. And my 12-year-old she was a little, that's when she started asking questions. Now I'm not going to go into it on the podcast, but she just started asking questions about how things transpired. And uh, she's happy that, she gets to see me as much. Because on the movie, he had very restricted um, time with his kids. But yeah, I guess to sum it up, they all handled it very differently.
Yeah.
It was kind of taboo in the beginning to talk about it, but now I'm starting to see them open up and ask questions. My 12-year-old actually said that she thought it was her fault
Oh.
that it happened. And I was like, yeah, no, this is all adult stuff. This had nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
And she was thinking like, I felt like if I would have like interjected and said something or spoke up, this might not have happened. Like, no, but that's the kid's mind. Children are very, their world view revolves around just them. They're very selfish thinkers. They think that everything happens because of them.
Mm.
And that could be a good thing and it could be a bad thing too. They're not able to see things like I'm crying. Uh, my dad's not here for me right now. It's
Yeah.
probably because I'm broken. But they're not able to see like, no, my dad is on a coaching call and he can't come to me right now. because that's just the way that they view things. I'm glad she asked that because she would have been, you know, making that assumption for a long time from now if
Yeah.
we didn't have that conversation. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And you touched a little bit too that they all kind of have different attachment styles. And that was something that we wanted to talk to you about and kind of how those different attachment styles form.
yeah,
And I guess, like after like I've like listened to a few books and like, on the subject. And I would say I admittedly think I'm a little bit anxious as well.
Same.
yeah.
And yeah. And I
It
know that
isn't a bad thing, and it's not a bad thing, if you can control it. Like you got to be able to turn it because it's actually a superpower if you understand it. Like you can turn it on and off.
yeah. Well, that's
If
like
you can actually deactivate whenever you can, then it actually works to your benefit.
Well, let's talk about how those kind of form because a lot of it was talking about kind of childhood and like the attachment to your parents and stuff. But I would
Yeah.
say a lot of my dating anxiety kind of comes from the way that I've been treated, like in the past from guys on dating apps and kind of like
Yeah.
always expecting the worst. And that's kind of like some advice you get too is like, just go into it. Don't be too attached. Like, just don't like, kind of detach yourself from the outcome of it. And that's
Hmm.
hard, especially as females when we're taught like, marriage is the end all be all. So let's just talk a little bit about like kind of how these different attachment styles form and then what you were kind of going into how to control the anxiety.
Uh, well, yeah. What I learned in the beginning when I was going through school was that these styles were formed, before the age of 5. You have an analogy that they use is like if you are living in a caveman era, you have the dismissive avoidant, which is the person who never got too close to their parent because they know that the parent was going to leave the cave eventually and have to go hunt and be gone for months at a time, maybe even never come back. So they try not to get too attached to them. And then you have the anxious, preoccupied person who, once the person's there, their caregiver is there, they're always under them because they just fear the day that that person will leave. And when that person leaves, they're deregulated and they're like losing weight, not eating, not sleeping, really anxious about that person coming back. The abandonment uh, fear is like at the forefront. And then you have the secure person who is able to balance it out in between, like accept that person when they come home and realize that hey, eventually they may have to leave, but I'm just going to enjoy their time while they're here and make the most of it. And then wish them well and wish them luck. Say a prayer for them when they leave. And then you have the fearful avoidant, which is the one that is the most deregulated. Some would think that they may even look bipolar in a relationship because they're the one when the parents they're under them, and then at the next minute they're like turn away from them in their room on a cell phone and like don't even want anything to do with their parent. And as soon as their parent don't pay them any attention, they're coming back out the room and you guys never show me any attention. It's like, well, I'm gonna be leaving the cave for a couple months. So are you gonna do this? No, you just go ahead. All right, give me a kiss. So it's like, all right, you're all over the place. Come on, you're a little too hot and cold here. So that I think that style is formed from the situation like we talked, like you said earlier. That's formed from uh, previous relationships. At some point, I believe, from what I've seen, it could have been a person that was anxious that completely let their guard down and completely got let down. And from there on out, their future relationships, they showed up fearful. It's like they really want it, but the instant that they feel that that person is like pulling away, like if they start to see that that person is showing just a little bit of tweaks in their day-to-day operations. If a person texts me every morning, good morning, the moment that they text me at 12, I'm like, what's going on? As a fearful. What's going on? Oh yeah, he's leaving. Yep, knew it. And then as soon as they text you, oh hey, how's it going? Good morning. So they're a little bit more skittish, almost like an abused puppy or a cat that runs under the couch. So that's kind of how that's formed. And for the anxious person, it's working on getting yourself to the point where you can regulate, where you can deactivate yourself, which I'm still trying to work out, if I'm being honest. I'm trying to figure out the perfect storm or the perfect cure to help a person deactivate, because it's not just one thing that they have to change. Because I know when people are talking to their friends and they're saying, girl, just forget about them, or just don't even call her again, don't text her again. But it's tougher than that. Like, you have to burn both ends of the candle in order to uh, get yourself to a state where you're recentered. And it's a combination of meditation, gratitude work, improving your self esteem, and forgiveness. I'm doing some forgiveness work too. So it's a bunch of different things that you have to do in order to get the results you want at the quickest rate. Because you can live in an anxious state for a really long time and never find closure and never feel like you can move on from that person. Even I like to steal Tony Robbins' quote. They live in a world of shoulds, and you say you don't want to should all over yourself, which is great. So I'm trying to get people to the point where they can really manage that anxiety that way. And it usually comes from personal development. And I'm going off the stuff that I've done, stuff that it worked for me, which is, really burying myself in finding some type of purpose. And once I was able to find purpose, there's another thing that Tony Robbins talks about, which is the will of life. The will of life is you have to be able to balance every area of your life. And when a person becomes anxious, that balance shifts. You start to put a lot more energy and time into your relationship part of your life. And you start to slack on your hobbies and your goals and your family life and your health. Like everything falls out of whack. So I'm really trying to help people balance that part of their life back, balance that part out. And when they get in these triggered or these activated states, try to get them to, get recentered as quickly as possible. And it's like I said, it takes all those. Like, I don't think you can't have one without the other. Like, it's got to be kind of like the total package.
We're all out here trying to be the secure attachment, but
yeah, right. We're the secure, or they are the minority. So.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say I heard, and I don't know if this is true, if you can confirm or deny that, like, anxious, is it anxious and dismissive,
anxious,
or
preoccupied? Yes, anxious, preoccupied, and it's dismissive and fearful avoidant.
Okay, I heard that the anxious and the dismissive always kind of seem to find each other in relationship.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you could talk about why that is and how I can stop dating dismissive men.
I kind of got a theory for that. I'm an empath, and I feel that empathic people tend to attract more people who aren't as empathic. It's the law of polarization. You attract the saying, opposites attract. But the problem is opposites don't last, because at some point you're going to suck the life out of each other. Like, one part is going to give too much, and the other part's not going. It's going to take too much.
Wait, I want to say that quote again. I love when someone says a good quote. So, opposites attract, but opposites don't last. That's such a good
yeah. After a while, it gets exhausting. Whatever attracted them to you in the first place is going to become exhausting. It's going to become red flags. They were red flags to begin with, but because they were so different, they intrigued you. And I can tell you, I'm all about men and women operate differently. Women are attracted to mystery. You guys are very curiosity. You're curious. You guys are very curious, and that mystery is what intrigues you. But then when you find out everything about them, and they're no longer a mystery, or you don't like what you see, that's when you start to become unattracted to them. When they over disclose too much, and you may be even able to relate to this. Like, have you ever went on a date where the guy just pretty much told you all of his nightmare stories and over disclose stuff, and you're like, ew, yeah, sign me up for some more of that. No, thank you. It was the guy that was laid back and was just chill, and you, I wonder if he likes me or not. I wonder if he's attracted me. I wonder if he thinks I'm cute. Like he didn't really offer too much. He was mysterious, so he kept you around. But once you run across the guy that's a little too needy and looks like he doesn't have anything else going on, and like he's giving out real stalker, it's like you're my world vibes, then you're like, yeah, no, it's not okay.
'Cause that's a red flag too, right? Like too much upfront on either end, really.
So even you being an anxious preoccupied, meeting a man that's more anxious, more AP than you are is going to repel you. It's going to make you not want to even give that person the time of day. So, it would be good for you to be with somebody that's more like you, but it's not what you're attracted to.
Mhm.
You know how women say, I want a good man, but then when they get a good man, they're like, yeah, this is boring as hell. Like,
It's so true. Cardi B has like a quote that she's like,
yeah, like, I'll take a little bit of toxic, please. Thank you. That's just how it works. It's so weird.
yeah, no, it is so true.
So that's what it is. That's why, APs kind of attract dismissals because they're mysterious. They're very independent. They're usually goal oriented, maybe high functioning in their job, whatever career they're in. Um, and they look like alpha males.
Mhm.
But my theory is, alpha males can't keep women because they're not able to meet the woman in the middle and meet their need. And
Well,
beta males are really good at picking up women too, but then they get friend zoned because they put up a lot of friend zone vibes, and they over disclose, and they're talking about feelings and emotions, and after a while they're like, if I want to deal with this, then I'll just go talk to my girlfriend. Like, I don't want to have to hear about your sore back and all of that stuff all day long. Like, no, thank you. So
outside of the attachment styles, I'm sure you probably get a lot of views on those on your YouTube and TikTok. But are there any other kind of categories or topics that you touch on that you feel like analytics wise you're getting like a lot of views on?
analytics wise, it's rebound relationships.
Mhm.
Yeah. And getting ex girlfriend or boyfriend back is another one. Yeah.
Getting them back.
Yeah, get how to get your ex back usually.
And what do you say?
I don't like
You don't?
I don't like making too much. I don't like, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of doing the same thing, but it's more attachment style related. But yeah, I do know how to do it. I mean, I know how to give people their best chance of getting them back.
I
But
mean, it's
usually
like no
it does.
contact, right?
Yeah, the no contact rule, which has to
How
be.
do you feel about that?
Yeah. I feel like I really feel like it's manipulation. Um, you're trying to trigger their FOMO in
Mm.
their brain, and it works usually. But for each attachment style, it has to be a little different. Especially if you weren't just complete, to them in a relationship, and they were the one that ended it, then they'll be, second guessing themselves, um, wondering where they stand with you, and if you've moved on, and if what they did make was a mistake. So yeah, usually it works. I mean, no contact rule does work, but I just don't like when people do it and they're not like discovering themselves and not healing themselves and not trying to be the best of them, the best person they can be.
Right.
Like if they just sit around twiddling their thumbs and then wait to reach out after 30 days, then like that was kind of worthless. Like you just wasted a bunch of time. Like you really should be trying to heal your style so you can show up differently and really self-reflect on what you did wrong and what that person did wrong. First
Especially,
and foremost, go ahead.
I would say like especially when you're sitting there like checking their social media and like like you said like that goes along with like the like putting the 30 days on it because they're still kind of obsessing over it.
Yeah, yeah, you're still orbiting them. What you should be doing is step one. You should be taking out a piece of paper, drawing a line down the middle, writing what's positive about that person, what's negative about that person, what needs they met, and what needs they weren't meeting.
And would
And
you
that's what you
say
should be doing.
that comes mostly from an anxious attachment style, like people who want to get their exes back, or can it be any of the attachment styles?
That reach out.
Like, I don't know, it just seems to me like if you were one of the minority of the secure attachment people, that
Yeah.
you would be more secure with yourself to realize that, like, if that relationship didn't work out, it most likely wasn't meant to be. But it seems like sort of an anxious attachment style to want to continue to try to get the ex back.
Yeah.
You can't imagine life without them.
Yeah. Well, your attachment style changes throughout circumstances and
Mm,
throughout situations. I worked with quite a few people that are actually secure, but they were triggered into their anxious
mm,
by that person because they may have been left abruptly, or they were just confused at how fast things fell apart, and they just wanted a little bit of clarification. Like, am I wrong? Did I do anything? And like they said, they everybody that comes to me has already taken their attachment style quiz, and they pretty much know what they are, and they pretty much know what their exes are.
mm.
And I've worked with a good few of them that were secure, and they were just triggered into their anxious, preoccupied side.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
The best of
but secure people usually heal quicker from the trauma of the breakup. Though.
Yeah, as you say, that happens to the best of us. And I feel like going through a breakup, I'm sure you've heard multiple stories, but you just are like, no other experience is like mine. Like I know people have gone through breakups, but mine's different, or like our
Oh my
relationship
goodness.
is different. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
yours is the same as everyone else's.
They
But
hate to hear that. Because they feel like, yeah, I get that all the time. I got a very unique situation here. Like mine is different. You probably didn't hear anything crazy. Like, yeah, I've heard this before.
right.
It's just there's only three answers to anything you can say, any scenario. There's really only three answers to it. So they're like, yeah, well, this person has this happened, and I know it. The road to get there may have been tumultuous, but you still got to the end result, which is you
Yeah.
know X, Y, Z, whatever it may be.
Well, do you think well, I was actually curious of both of your opinions. Do you think it's harder to do the breakup or get broken up?
I think get broken up with.
Ooh, that's a hard one.
Like to do the breakup, especially if you really care about the person, I think it's really difficult.
I'm thinking that's like a 50-50 toss up.
Yeah.
That's the like
Yeah, because
the
it all depends.
but after, like, you get
I
broken
would,
up with, the aftermath is
yeah,
so much worse than the aftermath of
yeah,
actually breaking up with them.
That's true. Yeah, it
yeah,
lasts longer.
yeah, 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 yeah. And I would think that the length of the relationship too plays a big factor. With dating apps and how superficial that is, people are just breaking up with people so easily these days. It's like, on to the next.
Yeah,
Like it is what it is. You're not my person, so
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm
I
just
think
gonna go find a person, which is easier said than done on the apps for sure.
yeah, yeah. Next, swipe literally. Like you can totally destroy a person's self-esteem, ego, self-worth by one swipe of the finger.
It's true. It's true. We're all just out here
Kind
judging.
of sad. It's kind of sad.
It's sad. I know. I'm taking a break from them right now, but yeah,
From dating.
from dating
Oh,
apps.
dating apps.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would,
I'm not gonna meet
yeah.
anyone. I'm in my house all day, so yeah, I guess just
Right,
dating in
right.
general.
Yeah, dating. Being a dating coach during quarantine was a very tough thing to do because
Mhm.
there was no dating.
Gonna say, yeah, our letter writer today definitely seems like an anxious attachment person.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. It says, Dear damsels, I've been having a lot of trouble connecting with my partner lately. Whenever something is bothering me, he seems to be a bit more dismissive of it than he typically has been in the past. For example, I tried to call him the other night to make plans, but he never answered or called me back. When I confronted him about it, he claimed he never received the call and that I was being too clingy. I know I shouldn't have, but I looked through his phone later and he certainly did have a missed call from me at that time. We used to be so much better at communicating through little things like this, but it seems like something has shifted. Is it possible for us to get back on track? Sincerely, am I too attached? That sounds like the one that you were talking about, Courtney, the one that goes back and forth.
Mm.
The hot and cold.
Yeah, because she said that he was like better before and now like he's kind of like not really communicating with her.
Yeah, something she's done, and it may not even been something she's done. something it's going on inside his internal world, whether it be work or family or something, has caused what I like to call the turtle in the shell. The turtle has went into the shell. It's isolation. It's reflection. Um, what Dr. John Gray calls going into the cave. From men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Men go into men go into the cave, but I feel like that's all dismissive avoidance. They go into their 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 protective layer, and then what they just don't want to talk to anybody. They don't want to talk about anything emotional, anything deep. They just want to just be and exist without having any pressure to come out of that shell anytime soon. Um, but unfortunately, though, if you are the person dating them, you can't be like the rabbit that's hopping around the turtle shell trying to get them to come out with that anxiety because they can sense that anxiety. Like, come out, let's talk about this right now. What's going on? Are you okay? Tell me what's on your mind. It's like, come on, just that's too much.
Mhm.
And they have a hard time like improving their emotions, and being able to say what's on their mind at the time. They really have to reflect on what they're feeling and how they're going to get themselves to a better state. So this person, it would be within her best interest to just kind of back off and look for the signs of him reactivating. So if he starts to like a Facebook post, or if he initiates contact first, or yeah, those are all like little subtle signs that they're reactivating. It's not because it's not too vulnerable. They always orbit, like whether they're activated or deactivated. They'll orbit. Like you'll see them checking your Snap or your Instagram stories. They won't reach out, but they'll just kind of like just let you know that they're just there in the area watching, and they're interested in your life, but they don't want to be in your life to such a great degree. They want to be able to have that sense of control over how much access you get to them.
It feels unfair though, because like
It
it
is unfair,
yeah, she just has
but
to like lay low and just leave him alone until he decides.
yeah. Well, one of my subscribers said, commented, it's like I'm walking on eggshells.
Mhm.
I was like, it kind of is, and you kind of got to make the best of the good times that you have. So instead of just like enjoying those blissful moments with them, like use those times to take advantage of their vulnerable side.
Mhm.
So if they're, say, he deactivated, when he reactivates and they're together. Sorry, when he reactivates and they're together, she needs to kind of like lay out her boundaries about that. Say, hey, when you went missing last week, like that really makes me feel this way when you do that. It's really hurtful, and I feel like something's wrong, and like I did something wrong. So in the future, if you can just let me know that you're overwhelmed or something, that's going to be huge for me, and it's going to be huge for you too, because you can get your freedom to do whatever you want, but it's also going to give me certainty that you're not just breaking up with me or you're abandoning me, because that's what you don't have to go on into this, but that's what it feels like to the anxious person. Is they're never going to hear from that person again, and that person's mad at them and that they did something wrong because they're flawed. Because I feel like because anxious feel like we're flawed, and it's only a matter of time before somebody leaves us. We live in a constant state of that. It's only a matter of time before somebody figures me out and realize that I'm not the person that they want to be with. So in the future, she needs to just kind of like don't give him an out. Don't let him just come back and re-engage like nothing happened. Kind of get on his good side a little bit, and then have that conversation with like, in the future, this is what I want. Like this is what I need in order to feel secure in this relationship.
That's a great point, because I think I'm definitely the anxious attachment style, and I've
Mhm.
been in a relationship for 5 years, so, like, I definitely have secure attachment in that, but, like, this type of situation would definitely activate my anxious attachment for sure, but I
Right.
think you're so right that, like, if she tried to have a conversation now, that person isn't going to be receptive to it because they're not in that headspace of being open to
Yep.
talk about it, but it is so important still to be transparent about how having these types of lapses in communication isn't healthy for either of them.
hmm Because what I learned about dismissals when they do deactivate, literally, I've heard several of them say that it's kind of just like they go numb.
Mm.
Like they just go to numb to all emotions.
Yeah.
That's just a way of them like suppressing or repressing those feelings
Yeah.
and not feeling them. So so if you're coming to them and you're trying to have an emotional conversation and make them feel those feelings, they're just going to either ignore you or many of them will block somebody because they just don't want to go there. So
Yeah, but I like what you said because it like lets her put up a boundary of like what she is and is not going to accept in the future. Because like you can't just keep going through these cycles. And I went through this with like my last boyfriend of like this cycle of like him being dismissive and then like coming
yeah,
back and then being dismissive again. And I still remember when we broke up, I was like, "Is something going on like between us?" And he was like,
yeah.
"No, not everything's about you." Is what he said to me.
That is what they say. They say it's not all about you. I promise you that is such a dismissive statement. It's not
I
all about you.
because then he just came, like then he came back and broke up with me in that same conversation. So I was like, okay, so
Wow.
it was about us. Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
No, I think he might have just didn't want to have to deal with it anymore.
yeah,
They would much rather be alone than have to deal with the drama of a relationship,
really, because he found a
unfortunately.
girlfriend immediately after me. So
Well, maybe. Well, it was probably rebound.
yeah,
Kind of maybe to try to repress those feelings, and maybe it was a way for him to get over you, not
yeah.
have to
I
feel
mean,
those
he's always
feelings.
in a relationship, so I saw that one coming, but it still
He,
stung a little.
if he's going relationship to relationship, he might be fearful later.
Yeah. That's what's interesting. I feel like a lot of these can kind of bleed into each other, and like, like people aren't just one type of attachment style.
Yeah,
I've like gotten from this
but
conversation.
you have all of them in you. It's just they're different percentages, and which one takes the driver's seat
Yeah.
is circumstantial and depends on what you're going through at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think they definitely even bleed into friendships and like, parent relationships. I don't think it's just, dating relationships.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Like everybody that I work with, like I won't say everybody, a high percentage of people that I work with, 90%, they all say that they're not like this in all their other relationships. There's just something about this person. They may say that, no, I used to be a player. I used to date around with this one person. Like it's just that one. You only get attached. You meet somebody, once or twice every decade that you actually get attached to. You
Hmm.
can have a bunch of different surface level relationships or whatever, and it's just going to be, once or twice a decade, or that person just does it for you, or they check all your boxes, and you have such a hard time getting over them, and you fall in love with the potential. They show you these little nuggets of the perfect person, and then they pull it all away, and that's what gets you hooked.
Mhm.
Is that little nugget of possibility or what you could be, and it's really
That's interesting
hard
for
to like
sure.
to forget that. It's hard to forget that.
And that's such a good reminder because it's like, yeah, with like my ex bouncing from girlfriend to girlfriend, I see a lot of my friends get in more relationships than me, but true and like genuine connection does not come along like that often. And
No, when you have it, you want to hang on to it, which is why you hang on for so long.
yeah. Before we wrap up though, Courtney, can you tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube, which is my home base. Uh, YouTube, Coach Court. Instagram is I am Coach Court, and Twitter is Coach Court too. Actually, you can go Facebook too. I have a Facebook page. I am Coach Court. So I guess I'm all over TikTok. I
Yes,
am
watch
Coach Court, which
TikTok.
is blowing. Yeah, TikTok is blown up. It's crazy.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. This has been great.
Yeah, it has been. Thank you guys. Appreciate you reaching out.
That was fun.
I know. I feel like I learned so much.
I know. I really, yeah. Apparently, I'm as clingy as I thought I was. And that's what I have taken away from this.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. Write us your letters.
Going down in the DMs.
Bye.